Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Phil Biedrone. Joining me today is director Leigh Scott. Leigh, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So I said director, but that's a bit of an understatement. Do you mind extemporating on that a little bit?
Well, I love to direct. That's my passion. But when you do that, you end up doing a lot of different other jobs along the way. So I've produced, I've directed, I've edited, I've acted as cinematographer, done visual effects. So I've kind of pretty much done it all.
The whole gamut, right? Yeah. So it's been a long road being in this industry, but if you mind, let's go back to your upbringing. How'd you first fall into this love of filmmaking?
Sure. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like most kids my age, I was in love with Star Wars. So I told my mom I want to be a Jedi Knight when I grow up, and she was like, "No, you can't do that. It's not a real thing."
That and the Sith took over. So
right? Yeah.
Okay.
It's a losing field.
Yeah. Right.
No real advancement there. So I said I wanted to be a Jedi. Then I said I want to be an X-wing pilot. She said, "Nope, still not real."
Okay.
So then they had to explain to me what movies were. And from there, I just decided when I was probably 6 or 7 that that's what I wanted to do with my life. And I started going to the library and reading technical books, very, very boring. Other kids are getting fun stuff, and I'm getting like the biography of Orson Welles, when I'm like a little kid. And then from there, I went, into high school, and I was one of the first people to have a little Commodore Amiga computer, which was like the first graphics computer.
Commodore, I haven't heard that word in a long time.
Yeah,
the Commodore, that's like before even Apple came out with it.
Before Apple, all that stuff. But it was the first computer like for the home that actually had graphics and editing software.
Wow.
So all my student videos had like cool like lower thirds and all sorts of stuff like that.
Nice.
And then I went to USC Film School where I studied critical studies as well as business.
Cool.
But actually spent most of my time drinking and being a frat guy because that was more fun.
That's what you do at USC.
And it's true. And also being USC, I actually made a bunch of contacts that probably ended up helping me more than the actual degree did at the end of the day.
Sure. A lot of people say USC is great for the contacts and the network that you build. Obviously, it has a great reputation as a film school, Spielberg, everything like that. So you went for your 4 years, did critical studies, and then you did business. Film business, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So right after you graduated college, very shortly after you actually had your first feature.
It was like a week after because I worked for Roger Corman as an intern, which is something
Roger Corman, he directed like the Little Shop of Horrors, like the original
Little Shop of Horrors,
like known for like camp and horror, low budget.
He's a guy who would do movies like in a weekend, pretty much. That was his whole thing. And one of the guys I went to college with, his dad was friends with him. They from Bel Air, so they were neighbors or something. And so I got an internship there. And then during the summers, I would actually work on set. And so I kind of got this idea in my head, like, if you make a movie for below a certain amount and in a certain genre, if you make a film that's a teen sex comedy, if you make a horror movie, make an action movie, you can make your money back. And so I went to all my fraternity brothers, who all came from much wealthier, backgrounds than I did. And I said, let's go make a movie. And I picked a teen beach comedy because I figured that would be something that the guys would actually enjoy coming to set and being excited for. If it was like a serious drama of me and like 3 actors like in an office building, I don't think a lot of people would have been excited. But having a bunch of bikini girls on set, I figured was a perfect fit for
take advantage of Los Angeles
for the investors. And it was ended up being a total disaster at the end of the day just because we didn't know what we were doing. We thought we did. We were 22 years old.
Right. You had the theory, but not the practice.
Right, and it's like, and you have a little bit of arrogance too. It's like being 6 days after graduation, walking into your first production meeting. It's messes with your ego a little bit. I can see how people get a little crazed with that.
Yeah.
And the first big problem was that the casting person we had was one of the girls from school we knew who had interned at the casting company who did extras for Baywatch.
Oh, cool. So she's already familiar with that world.
Yeah, so she knew that world, so she could get the girls for us for the bikini beach scenes or whatever. And she didn't realize that when you send out the contracts or the offer letters, the deal memos, if the actor accepts it, that's a real contract.
That's locked in.
They're locked. Yeah. So even though we didn't have the money all raised, we realized very quickly we had like $70,000-$80,000 in contracts that the agents and SAG and everything expected us to pay no matter what.
Even
if you make the movie or not, they still get paid.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a rock and a hard place.
You got some people involved in that film, right?
Yeah, we had Chris Hardwick was in it. This guy Dalton James, who was in a movie called My Father the Hero, which had just come out. Gerard Depardieu, like a big movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And this actress Brooke Langton, who ended up, she was on the show The Net. She was Keanu Reeves' girlfriend in The Replacements. So she had a decent career afterwards. And so, yeah, we just went out there and started filming. I had I got lucked out, and I had a bunch of crew guys who were like old, sort of, just those old crusty union guys who been around the block. They all came out and did it as a favor for fun, and so
nice.
The producers were all 22, 23. The actors were all 22, 23. But then camera, lighting, grip, sound. These guys are like 50 plus. It was it was a fun dynamic, but a very odd dynamic.
And you're at the helm. You're directing.
And I was directing the whole thing. Wow. My best friend had written the script. Like I said, it was a lot of fun. But then when you get into like the reality of it, you're like, oh my God, this is a disaster. We have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
And then we had to keep shooting it in different sections because we didn't plan it out properly. So we would lose days, lose locations, and then we have to come back to it. But then the actors we had, they were real actors with real agents and stuff. And so we ended up having to kind of spread the shooting out. I mean, over like the course of at least a whole summer. We started we started in early June and we didn't finish until September or October just by shooting. So it's like here and there.
Richard Linklater film at that point. Exactly. Just, hey, free this weekend. We got to grab this shot again. And not to mention, you were shooting when you're shooting on film.
Yeah, we shot film back then. Yeah.
So it's not like you can really have access to direct playback, or dailies, or anything like that.
You had film dailies, and they were converted to tape, and they would actually bring us not even DVDs; they'd bring us VHS copies.
What is a VHS? I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the inferior Betamax format. So it was very old school in that sense. So we did everything by the book, and it was also tough too because it's like you're trying to kind of piece money together, and it's not like a digital film where you can kind of push stuff off.
Right.
We needed film. We needed film stock every day.
It's not
so
cheap.
we had to come up with $5,000-6,000 a day just to go get the film stock. So that was always.
But you did have
tough.
A budget. You finished.
Yeah, we spent $350,000. We looked at a couple of the. At one point, one of the fathers of one of our friends was a very, very wealthy guy. He came down to visit our set and saw what we were doing, and I think it was. I think more than he thought he would make his money back or be rich off this. I think he really admired the fact that we were doing it, and as an entrepreneur himself, I think he appreciated the sort of situation we were in.
Yeah.
So he came in and cut like a huge check one night. That was kind of like made it smooth, but that didn't fix the fact that we didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
So we had the money now, but we still were stupid. So
well, you said $350,000. In relative dollars, was that like a lot of money for a feature?
No, I mean that was sort of like the low end of the lower budget stuff at the time.
Okay. Still doable.
It was still doable, yeah. I mean, if we'd known what we were doing, we would have been gold. But when you're goofy and you hire, for example, extras. We weren't thinking that, we need 50 extras for this scene. We hired the extras company, get them all there, but we didn't understand scheduling properly.
Yeah.
So we literally had 50 extras standing at the beach while we're filming two people talking at a park bench. You know what I mean?
And they're like, we're fine, just hanging out on the beach.
And the old two guys are like, man, the extras have been sitting around, that's going to cost you a lot. We're like, what do you mean it's going to cost us? They're only $100 a day. And they're like, no, it's $100 for 8 hours, and there's overtime. So we get these bills, and we're like.
They always cost extra. I got to throw one in there. Right?
That's good. You're on point.
But I mean, that's the quickest way to learn.
Yeah, it was a completely invaluable experience in the sense that I've never made those same mistakes again. And even something small like when you're watching your first film's dailies, you hate every movie after you shoot it, no matter what movie it is, no matter how well you do.
At least
you cringe when you watch the first. No movie there's a phrase. No movie is as bad or as good as its dailies or as bad as its first cut. And that's true. It's like you watch the dailies and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. Then you put it together and you're like, this is the most miserable thing. I want to just disappear. What have I done?
Alan Smithy it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be a part of it.
So on that movie, it was the same thing where I would watch it and go, oh my God, these shots don't cut together. And what was I thinking? Like, how do they get in that room? Like they're outside, then there's no shot to go in between those two things. Like, what am I doing? So the sort of like basic first-time filmmaker things, it was baptism by fire because everything I had looked great. I have real actors, I've got all the bells and whistles there. Yeah. So there's no way to excuse that to say, well, it doesn't work because the lighting's off. I couldn't do that. It's like everything was perfect. It's just I didn't get the right shots. I didn't follow through, and I didn't get the pieces that I necessarily needed.
Just curious, what is the film? What is it called?
It's called Beach House.
Beach House. Is it available? Like, can I find it?
I don't know. I don't think it really is anywhere. I think that what had happened was when we went to sell the film, we had a really shady distributor first time out. We ended up having to sue those guys.
Ooh,
and then another distributor took it, and I think somebody once told me they saw it like on TV in Israel at some point, but it never was released in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't even know if I have any like real digital.
But you had mentioned that you had a screening for it.
Yeah, we
building some anticipation.
Yeah, we kind of got screwed a little bit because one of the actors in the film, Chris Hardwick, he was at UTA, and so he brought the film to his agent, and the agent liked it and was like, "Let's do this."
UTA is a huge agency.
Huge agency.
Yeah.
And so we had the big screening. We rented out the Writers Guild.
Nice.
But it was the same week that Swingers, the movie, sold.
Oh yeah.
And so the industry was kind of like tapped out after that whole bidding war. And our film was very different. Our film was it's a very smart throwback to like the '80s comedies, but it wasn't at that time period. It was very much Clerks and Swingers. It was like this indie thing, and ours wasn't. at the end of the day, it didn't end up that same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people weren't that excited about it. So.
It must have been like 95 then. At that.
Yeah, it was like, I think we ended up selling it like 96, 97 was when it actually finally got released. We started like in 95.
But you must have been like, what, 22 years old?
22 years old.
Directing your first feature, getting it distributed and sold. I mean, that's a home run.
No, it was a home run, but it was still a painful experience.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have done exactly the same way if I had to do it again.
Okay, so you had been directing, but you had mentioned that you were wearing a couple different hats and that you had learned a couple of the other key positions on a crew. Like, for instance, you learned how to edit. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that was right when nonlinear editing, editing without the sort of like the old flatbed film,
where you physically have to reel and you physically cut it.
Right, yeah, this is right in the period where they started getting rid of that and going into like the sort of like, let's edit with computer stuff. So we were one of the first films that actually did the whole process all the way through with the new technology. And one of the guys who produced the film with me, his father was a huge editor at Warner Brothers. He was like the head of post. He'd done like Die Hard, Basic Instinct, RoboCop, like all these big movies. And he wanted to learn it. So he said, I'll rent the machines for you guys, which was like, honestly, like 10 grand a month probably at that point. He's like, I'll rent it for you guys, put it in my house, and you'll teach me how to do this. This is the future. And in exchange, I will give you, pointers on how to edit your film. So
because he had the knowledge of how to edit, but he didn't know the digital.
Right, exactly.
The new
so it would
landscape.
literally be him saying, here's the way you should cut it. Cut before she smiles, cut after he looks, do this, do this. And then he would watch me as I physically pushed the buttons and did it. So
that's a great relationship. You're helping each other, and then you got another skill in your tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned from, like I said, these guys won like 3 Oscars, I think. So
wow, yeah,
it was a good guy to learn from.
Nice.
And
I'm sure it helps when you're directing if you also know edit in your mind.
It definitely helps to do that. And and in between that film and the next film I did, I would actually work with the same crew guys. I would ask them, I'd say I didn't want to work a regular bar job or something like that, so I would say, hey, bring me on your set. So I worked as a grip, I worked as an electrician, I worked as a camera assistant.
Cool.
So I did all those jobs.
You're able to sort of learn everything on the set.
And by doing that, then I know now when people try to like BS me on set, I know their job. So I know what they're saying.
What do you mean? Like, can you give me an example?
When somebody says something about a camera, for example, like I own one of the big digital cameras now, and I've used them all. So, and I know that job. So a lot of filmmakers will come on set and not understand, how it works. So I'll say, hey, can I get playback on that? Oh no, we can't do playback with audio. Yeah, you can. So I know exactly how to rig that and do that.
They're not expecting you.
They're not expecting me to know that.
Yeah, because director directs and that's it. But you've been able to do all the fields, which is to your advantage, right?
Yeah. Okay. And also even later on, it's like when you sort of move through it, it's like I've done a lot of work in visual effects. I actually think that all the digital stuff is always the future, obviously, but I think there's a lot of really good creative opportunities there. So I really took a lot of time to learn it, and I started my own effects company.
Wow. Okay.
And so as a director too, it's the same thing where guys will come on set and be like, "Oh, you really can't do that because that's gonna." It's going to cost a lot of time later. And I'm like, no, it's not. We'll pop in a green screen. We'll do a quick roto of the blow up. As long as this we'll shoot this on a clean plate. Like I know the process to do that.
Interesting.
And it kind of blows people away because they're like, oh, it's my job. I'm supposed to know that. I'm supposed to, slow you down and cost you a lot of money. But I can't do that now. So.
Yeah. Well, what about being the cinematographer? Do you have experience with that? Have you done that as well? Does that go hand in hand with directing?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a director, I've always seen the sort of scene in its entirety, which includes the lighting and the camera work. So I've always, even though they're great guys and I love them, I've always kind of felt the cinematographers were a bit extraneous because I would tell them, I want the camera to start here, dolly to here, I want this lens, it should be lit this way.
That sounds like a DP talking as opposed to a director.
Yeah, exactly.
At least most directors I know.
Yeah, but I've seen both. Like I worked as an AD for bigger directors, and I've seen some directors walk on set, basically just talk to the actors. They don't even do the blocking in advance. The actors are kind of working it out with him or her. And other directors walk in and know exactly where the camera goes, where the move's going to be.
Right.
And you can kind of see that in the final product. Like you watch a Sam Raimi movie or a Ridley Scott movie, you can kind of see that sort
Sam Raimi is more the acting focus. And
no, Sam Raimi is all the crazy camera work. So, so he's literally saying, it's a shot of this to here, and you're going to open your eyes and look scared. He plans it all out.
Got it.
Paul
is that the kind of director that you are?
Yeah, that's more of what I like to do.
Paul Verhoeven, he did Blade Runner, right?
No, Paul Verhoeven did RoboCop, Basic Instinct, Starship Troopers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he's one of those guys who's very mathematical and plans it all out. So
Ridley Scott did.
Ridley Scott. But as a cinematographer, like I picked that up along the way, just watching and learning, and when things went from I can shoot film, but when things went to digital, I was like, okay, now is really the time where I can really do this myself because I've got the full playback. I got the mod. I can see exactly what we're getting now. So I felt comfortable stepping into that position. Okay. And then from there, other people have liked what I've done, and they've hired me to just be a cinematographer on their set. Okay. And that's actually hard because I'm also got the mindset of the director, so I'm like, oh, she shouldn't sit in line that way.
Yeah.
Even if the shot looks cool, I'm like, what's she doing with the acting?
Yeah. So. But like when you direct, are you typically DPing your films now, or is it just
the last few I have. I mean, I think when you work for like a network, I've done like a TV movie or something like that. When you do that you don't have that option necessarily unless they decide it. So you end up working with somebody.
Yeah, that's more the independent route. You know,
yeah, but if it's my show and I'm doing everything from scratch, then I would say I'll probably shoot it.
Yeah, you'll be the one-man band. So DP, director, you have all the editing experience, all the crew, but not just that, but writing and producing. Is that correct?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, when you do indie film, you have to be able to do anything and everything because no one's going to be there for you to do it. And I think as we get more technologically advanced with stuff, that's going to become even more the case.
More the case that
it's contained. It's like you can do everything. You know what I mean? You can do it all yourself anyway. So it's like you either can't afford or might not have the resources to get to those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, we've got this Oscar winner script, this Oscar winner is going to shoot your film, this Oscar winner is going to produce your film, I would say, absolutely, I'll just be the director. But when you're in like an indie kind of experience, it's like you don't necessarily know. So my first instinct is, well, am I a better cinematographer than this person who wants to work for me, and can I afford to hire them? Like, what's the trade-off there?
Plus, you might be tearing your hair out if you're wearing too many hats. Like, are you ever the writer, producer, and director on one project?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot to handle.
Well, I mean, when you're producing, there's the producer, and then there's also like the line producer, the production managers.
Right.
So I've never directed and production managed or line produced. But in terms of like getting the whole thing together from the conception, like I've done that, and then I've had like a really good, person on set to kind of handle the money, make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. But yeah, no, you end up doing that, do it all.
Okay. Sure. Speaking of, what is something that you're currently working on?
And on the smaller end, I've got a project I'm doing myself. Again, now even more than usual, which is I'm using all the video game engines, like the Unreal Engine and all the video game rendering stuff to create virtual landscapes, virtual set pieces with animated characters, motion capture. Wow. So I'm working on that kind of stuff for one project. And I got a couple projects that are now actually going up that extra level. So it will be bigger budgets and bigger stuff than I usually do. Just taking a couple of years to get to that.
Okay.
Even after all I've done, just to take the scripts all the way through that process takes a really long time.
Like a year, 2 years?
I mean, the one that's probably going to go first, it's like a 2-year process from the point where someone first said, I love this idea, let's make this, to now we're getting close to the point where I'm like, okay, I can start to see wheels are turning, money's going to start coming, this will be out next year after kind of thing.
Oh, cool. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much. I have some more questions for you right after a quick break.